What would it take to fight Tom Aspinall from the UFC? Like, what does the UFC got to do?
Said something real wild on off the cuff. I'll see you guys later.
That's it.
Yeah,
right.
thanks for the happy
John
beer.
Jones, the legend.
I don't want to say that I'm retired because fighting is in my blood. Right now, I could really care less about fighting. I've been doing it my whole life at a very high level. And when the itch comes back, if it comes back, then I'll do it with my whole heart.
Daniel Cormier demands Jon Jones be stripped of his UFC title, declaring the champion is holding the division hostage with no intent to fight.
What took so long? What took so long for you to tell us, hey, if it comes back, I'll come back. But right now it's not there. What took so long? You will get grace in that regard. By not saying something, by waiting to say something, you gave people the idea that you just don't want to fight this guy. Seriously, that you just don't want to fight this guy.
Cormier, the former two-division UFC champion and longtime rival of Jon Jones, has added his voice to a rising wave of criticism aimed at the reigning heavyweight champion. According to Cormier, the UFC should now strip Jones of his heavyweight title. His reasoning? Jones has shown no real desire to compete and continues to hold up the division, leaving rising star Tom Aspinall and the rest of the heavyweight contenders in limbo.
I get it that he's seen the great hope of someone that's going to beat him in the past. There's never been someone like this. Now, I just told you I was never better than that fight in Anaheim, and he beat me. Let me tell you why it's never been someone like Aspinall. Because of the way the roles have changed. If this was Jon Jones at 28 years old, no worry for him. And Aspinall would not be the biggest threat to him. The reason Aspinall is the biggest threat to him today is because he's 38 years old. Because he's lived a life of excess, partying, living, doing all those things that back in the day got him into trouble. Sure, we have not seen him doing those things yet. I mean, obviously, he still has a good time. I don't know if it's to the extent that he did before, but Aspinall's the biggest threat today because the roles have reversed. At 28 years old, John would have seen Tom a million times over and fought him already. But John at 38 recognizes that this dude's a little better.
Cormier's remarks come as UFC fans, analysts, and even fighters grow increasingly frustrated with Jones's lack of action. Despite being crowned the heavyweight king back in March 2023 after submitting Cyril Gane, Jones has fought just once since then. More than a year has passed, and instead of returning to unify the belt with current interim champion Tom Aspinall, Jones appears to be more focused on his personal reflections than his fighting career.
He beat Stipe Miocic, but come on, guys, we all know Stipe was done at that point. But I saw some clips recently of Stipe landing on John. I don't even remember him doing anything positive in that fight because he seemed so far behind Jones. But when I saw those clips, he is actually landing. And if he was landing, I'm imagining Tom Aspinall will land. But what you guys can't forget, this guy has a good chin. Jon Jones beat me when I was at my best. I was never better in my career than that fight in Anaheim. I was never better, a mixed martial artist. Whether I beat Stipe, whether I beat Derek Lewis and Dan Henderson, all those guys, I was never better than that night he beat me in Anaheim. And he beat me. That's where my idea that he isn't afraid of Tom Aspinall comes from. Because if he could beat me then, I feel like he could beat anyone in mixed martial arts. But by taking so long, he's now giving you the idea, well, he's afraid.
The UFC had been working behind the scenes to schedule a heavyweight title unification bout between Jones and Aspinall, but so far their efforts have failed. UFC CEO Dana White has publicly stated that the promotion is close to moving on if Jones doesn't agree to the fight within a short 2-week window. White recently mentioned that while Jones initially gave the green light to fight Aspinall, the champion's more recent comments have cast serious doubt over the matchup ever taking place.
What I'm about to ask you, you're not going to say is the beauty of what we do, because I know you're sick of the question. Does Jon Jones not want to fight, or does Jon Jones just not want to fight Tom Aspinall?
Listen, Jon Jones has been an interesting human being to deal with since the day he got here. But I will say this about him. You would never hear me out, talking about he's the GOAT, and he's the this, and he's the that if John Jones didn't want to fight people. John Jones has never, ever said, I'm afraid to fight this guy, or I don't like this fight for me, or any of that stuff.
So if, for instance, he doesn't fight this guy, who would you like to see him fight? Or are you going to wait until he fights this guy?
I don't know. We'll see how this thing plays out over the next couple weeks. But yeah, if we can't get this fight done, we'll move on quickly.
In an appearance on the Full Send podcast, Jones expressed a deep lack of motivation toward fighting at the moment. Though he avoided using the word retired, his tone made it clear that stepping back from competition, at least temporarily, is where his head is at. He shared that he's been fighting at a high level his entire life and feels that he has now reached a stage where his purpose lies elsewhere, in inspiring others, being approachable to fans, and reflecting on his impact rather than chasing more fights.
What do you make of like Tom Aspinall and all the things that he's been saying about you?
I think he's awesome, man.
Hello, John. I have nothing against you personally, but I just think I'm better than you. I just know that I can beat you.
I think he should go on and have a wonderful career. He's not in the position to like excite me. Because if I whoop his ass, it's going to be the next guy. There's going to be a whole new fan base of somebody who everybody believes in. I've done this my whole adult life. I remember Rampage fans years ago, Rashad fans and Lyoto fans. I literally have replayed this story so many times in my life.
This mindset is what has led Cormier to conclude that the UFC can't afford to wait any longer. He argued that Jones has made his position clear and that prolonging this situation only makes things worse for the rest of the division. From Cormier's perspective, it's not a matter of disrespecting Jones's legacy, but of facing reality. If Jones isn't going to defend his title, the belt needs to be taken off him so that the division can move forward.
So that's why we're seeing a man say, this guy doesn't really excite me. When in reality, it's exciting, but it's also very scary. So he'd prefer to leave that legacy intact, knowing in time everybody forgets, hey, he fought everybody else. Because we should not judge him based off one thing. We really shouldn't. But for a long time, people asked for him to go up to fight at heavyweight against guys like Cain Velasquez, Stipe in his prime, and he was very hesitant about doing that. He fought Stipe at 41, no problem. He fought Cyril Gane, who's at limited, no problem. Now he's got a guy in front of him that is very dangerous, very hungry, and he's kind of going, I don't really want to do this. But guys, guess what? Maybe it's just over. Sometimes you just know it's over. Chael and I discussed this a while ago. Sometimes it's just over. And when you know, you walk away. Unfortunately, he waited so long that it's going to look like it looks. So right now, it's time to strip him. Strip him. It's time to strip him.
Cormier believes Jones's recent statements, especially about not caring much for fighting anymore, are as close to a retirement announcement as one can get without actually saying the words. Cormier noted that sometimes fighters know when it's over, and it seems like Jones may be in that space mentally, rather than hang on and make the division wait. Cormier believes stripping the title would allow new stars like Aspinall to shine and bring life back into the division.
He was talking to Full Send MMA. He was talking to Kyle from the Nelk Boys, and he said this.
He's not in a position. He's not in a position to like excite me. It's just the truth. It's gonna be the next guy. There's gonna be a whole new fan base of somebody who everybody believes in. I've done this my whole adult life.
There it is. Him talking to Kyle. That's the actual clip of him talking about Tom Aspinall and saying how Tom needs him. And he's telling the truth. You know, he's telling the truth. No matter how great Tom Aspinall is, he needs that fight. He needs that fight to go over. It's a tale as old as time in all of sports, all of wrestling, all of everything. When the Lakers became the best and Magic Johnson took over from Larry Bird, he had to go through Larry Bird. When Michael Jordan became the world champion, he had to go through Magic Johnson. You feel the era switch. John Jones will, if he doesn't fight Tom Aspinall, stop that from happening. But ultimately, it's time to strip him. He doesn't want to fight this guy. If he ain't going, it does not sound like he's going to fight. It's time to take the belt. It's time to move on and hope that that itch he speaks about comes back. And if it does, Stick him in there with Tom Aspinall. Give him no other choice.
The growing sense of urgency isn't just coming from Cormier. Aspinall, the UFC interim heavyweight champion, has openly voiced his frustration about the situation, having run through top-tier heavyweights like Andrei Arlovsky, Alexander Volkov, Curtis Blades, Sergey Spivak, and Sergey Pavlovich, all by knockout. Aspinall has more than earned his shot at a unification bout. Fans have echoed his frustration, with many even starting petitions to pressure the UFC into stripping Jones of the title so the division can be active again.
I would make him fight Tom even if Tom wasn't the champion, because I think that's the fight that matters. Tom Aspinall's ready. Tom's gonna go fight someone else. That dude was pissed that he has not been booked, but we're gonna see what happens. But guys, finally, today we got some answers that Jon Jones says he's pretty much done. I don't want to say I'm retired, but is really all you need to hear. I could have did that in a minute. I did it in 11. That's all you got to hear.
Jones, now 37, doesn't seem bothered by the pressure. He admitted during his podcast appearance that he's content not fighting for now and dismissed suggestions that he's avoiding Aspinall. While he praised the British fighter's skills and future in the sport, he also implied that fighting Aspinall wouldn't do much for his own legacy. He suggested that beating Aspinall would just result in having to deal with a new group of passionate fans defending the Brit, something he doesn't seem particularly eager to engage with.
Pretty solid. Well, you missed the golf swing though. You had to get that again.
His comments during the interview were contradictory at times. On one hand, he claimed he's still a company man and suggested that the UFC has asked him to sit still and take the punishment quietly. On the other hand, his actions, such as storming out of interviews whenever Aspinall's name is brought up, suggest that he's either uninterested or perhaps unwilling to commit to the matchup.
What do you think about DC saying he would have already fought Tom?
I don't think much about it, but I really do want to fight Tom Aspinall. I just want to meet him here at Dirty Boxing.
So he has to come to a Dirty Boxing event for him to get the fight?
We'll fight here at Dirty Boxing.
You'll fight at Dirty Boxing. I like that. All right, John.
In fact, when podcast host Kyle Forgard asked a simple question about what it would take to get Jones to fight Aspinall, the champion abruptly ended the interview. It wasn't the first time either. Jones has repeatedly avoided situations where Aspinall's name is mentioned. One memorable incident saw him walk out of a planned UFC promotional segment upon hearing British accents, assuming that Aspinall was the focus of the interview.
How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing all right.
Good, man. Good. Have a seat, sir.
Hey, I'm not gonna do this interview. You don't want to do it? No, because it's gonna be an Aspinall fest. I'm not gonna. Come on, let's go. Hey, bro, nothing personal. I see how close you guys are, and common sense tells me what type of questions I was gonna get asked. So I'm just like.
Give me time to speak to who you want to speak to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All of this has created a confusing and unproductive dynamic for the UFC. The heavyweight division, historically one of the most exciting in the sport, is now effectively stalled. Even Dana White, who usually defends his champions, seems to be running out of patience. He recently confirmed that if the Jones versus Aspinall fight isn't finalized within a couple of weeks, the organization will move forward without Jones.
Not everyone goes through a career in mixed martial arts where they just dominate everybody. And that is what Jon Jones has done, apart from maybe dominate Reyes. But just because you lose 2 fights early in your career doesn't mean that you can't learn. Go on and become one of the best heavyweights the sport's ever seen, which is exactly what Tom Aspinall has. Yes, he was beaten twice on his way to the UFC, but the fight that needs to happen is against Jon Jones, unless the announcement is that he's retiring.
This uncertainty has opened the door to even more speculation, including from former fighter and analyst Chael Sonnen. Sonnen revealed that he had spoken to one of Jones's coaches, who hinted that a fight between Jones and Aspinall might happen, but not this year. According to Sonnen, the coach said that Jones might consider returning in 2026, depending on how things unfold. That kind of timeline is deeply concerning, especially since it suggests that Jones is hoping for a shift in circumstances, such as Aspinall losing or being replaced by someone else who doesn't pose the same challenge or risk. Sonnen pointed out that if the UFC waits too long, Aspinall might not even be the champion anymore. A year in MMA is a long time, and with the level level of competition Aspinall faces, there's always a risk that things could change.
Very close to John. I spoke to one of John's coaches. I did say, hey, is he gonna fight Tom? And he said, I think so next year. I do not think he will this year. My interpretation of that, I think what John is looking for is for Tom to do something else. John said, just go fight somebody else. If you're talking about a year from now, you're talking about, I want to see Tom fight 2 or 3 more times. Will Tom be the champion 2 and 3 more? Because if we go a year from now and Tom's not.
It's also worth considering the financial aspect. Sonnen speculated that Aspinall's value is only going to rise over the next few fights. If the UFC waits too long, securing that matchup might become even more expensive. Aspinall could become a bigger star, demand a bigger purse, and possibly have other opportunities that take priority. Jones, too, might not be able to demand the same numbers if the timing isn't right.
Where would be the interest in seeing John come back? 3 fights from now, you know how rich Tom's gonna be? To make believe that Tom is gonna be as willing and in the same spot, it's a big risk. If you're in John's spot, you'd be waiting for one specific thing, which is the right time to fight Tom. But what if the champion's no longer Tom? Who, under contract, could you possibly imagine could command the kind of money that John is being offered, even if it's a year from now?
While Jones claims he will fight again when the motivation returns, the truth is that he's been largely inactive at heavyweight. His win over Gane was impressive, and his performance against Miocic, though hyped, hasn't materialized yet. Without a unification fight, his heavyweight journey feels incomplete, and every time he avoids discussing Aspinall or walks out of an interview, it reinforces the narrative that he's avoiding the one fighter who could cement his legacy in the new division. Aspinall's training partner Phil DeFries suggested that Jon Jones is clinging to the heavyweight title more for the prestige and financial benefits than a genuine desire to defend it. DeFries speculated that Jones might be avoiding a fight with Aspinall altogether, and if Aspinall were to lose to another contender, Jones would likely be eager to face that opponent instead, simply because it wouldn't be Aspinall. This points to a strategy of delaying or dodging the British challenger while maintaining the perks that come with holding the belt.
So we've got to speak about Tom because from my, I've been covering MMA for years. I've been watching it since before I was a teenager. I can't remember seeing anything quite like this Tom Aspinall, Jon Jones saga. What are you making of it?
I don't think it's going to happen, you know. I don't think Tom wants it. I don't think John wants anything to do with it. I think John gets a lot of money for being champion. I think the sponsors and that are paying him a fortune, and I think he's just dragging along, keeping the belt as long as possible because it's worth that much money to him. I don't think he's got any intention of doing the fight at all. I think he's just going to drag it out as long as he can until he gets stripped. You never know, he might come back. I mean, you know, but I'm betting he would, if Tom did get beat, he would jump for joy and he'd fight the guy who beat him. But Tom's not going to get beat, and I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think so. I think it's just not happening at all. But you never know. But I think if it was going to happen, John would have said yes by now, and he's just partying in Thailand, isn't he?
Curtis Blades, who has first-hand experience fighting Aspinall, expressed skepticism about Jones ever agreeing to face the interim champion. Blades suspects that the UFC may eventually schedule Aspinall against Cyril Gane for a different title bout, effectively sidestepping Jones and his undisputed championship. Though Blades avoids outright accusing Jones of dodging the fight, he highlights that Jones hasn't yet faced a prime heavyweight contender. His wins over Gane and Miocic came against opponents who either had clear weaknesses or were past their peak, casting doubt on Jones's standing as the true heavyweight king.
Well, I was actually going to ask you after, but I think at this point, what's the excuse? At this point now,
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying, you know.
I have no idea. I'm not going to be disrespectful and say he's scared. He can't be scared. I have no idea.
I just don't think, and I think that I said this the first time I brought this up, I don't think the reward is worth the risk, I think, on his end. It doesn't mean you're scared, but it's like he's had this great legacy, and I think he feels as though him beating Tom wouldn't add that much more to his legacy. And I think he's trying to get away with the fact, this is what I'm thinking he's thinking. I'm thinking he thinks that he can convince people that beating Stipe was more meaningful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's wrong, but you're right. He probably does think that, but if he were honest with himself, he hasn't beaten a real heavyweight, a real prime heavyweight. You beat who he's got obvious holes in the grappling, and then you beat an old Stipe who was rusty and who did have you. He had you there were moments in that fight where Stipe, a younger Stipe, maybe takes advantage of those times he had him. I think if John were to beat Tom, we would all be like, okay, he legitimately is the GOAT. He legitimately won the heavyweight title. it would just, I think it would help him. I think it would help him more than, even if he lost. Because, bro, we get it. You're old. You're not a real heavyweight. We get it. You can lose. It's okay.
Outside the UFC, Aspinall also has supporters who believe he would decisively beat Jones. Rico Verhoeven, a top heavyweight kickboxing champion who has trained with Aspinall, praised the Brit's striking and grappling skills, stating that Jones wouldn't stand a chance against him. Verhoeven emphasized Aspinall's elite striking ability, suggesting that he could even compete at a high level in kickboxing, a sport Verhoeven has dominated for years. This endorsement adds weight to the growing anticipation around Aspinall's potential as a dominant force in heavyweight MMA.
There's one guy who could mimic a John Jones on the feet. It's Rico Verhoeven.
He's gonna wipe the floor. He's gonna wipe the floor with John Jones.
You believe
John Jones
100%.
doesn't have a chance versus Tom Aspinall. Mark my words. Tom Aspinall is a freaking monster.
I love it.
On his feet and on the ground. So, and I truly believe that John Jones has never faced somebody that is that good on his feet. On the ground, he's faced some guys that are pretty good, but on his feet, I think Tom is, he would even do good in the kickboxing ring. He would be a top competitor for to fight me as well.
Ultimately, the situation has reached a boiling point. Cormier has spoken. Aspinall is waiting. The fans are tired. Even Dana White appears to be out of patience. And John Jones, despite all his talk about being a company man, doesn't seem to want to do what company men usually do, show up and fight. As things stand, it seems the only thing holding back the UFC heavyweight division is the man at the top. Whether or not the promotion strips Jones of his title remains to be seen, but if they don't act soon, the division risks slipping into irrelevance. With rising stars like Aspinall ready to lead the charge, the UFC might have no choice but to make a decision that many believe should have already happened.